Good afternoon. I'm hoping I'm live. Oh yes. Hi Sylvia. Thank you for joining me. That gives me confidence to know that I am actually live, because sometimes Facebook just tells us fibs. So good afternoon and welcome to Izzy's Crafty Bees. Hi, I'm Izzy Shashinsky and I am an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator here in the UK, and to be precise in North Nottinghamshire. I will just apologise for a small amount of noise coming from the background. Oh, hi there Shaz and Jackie. I can see a few people hopping on now. Yeah, bit of noise going on. Husband's got some power tools out, you know. I mean, he has his den, I have mine. That's fine. So, thank you for joining me this lunchtime. I've got some fantastic cards to share with you, and I'm hoping that you enjoy the demonstration. I've had feedback over the years. I've been a Stampin' Up demonstrator for almost 10 years. It'll be my 10th anniversary next year, early next year, and I've had feedback over those years when I've been running classes that colouring in lined images is definitely a Marmite crafting activity. Oh, just bear with me. Did you bring your packed lunch? I'm just finishing mine. It's been a bit of a rush this lunchtime. So people, I find, either absolutely love colouring in those lined images that we stamp, or absolutely hate it. So I've got something for everyone today. The projects I'm going to be doing are actually no colouring in. Well, one tiny little bit, if you can call it colouring in, of adding some colour. But on the whole, I want to show you how to get gorgeous results without the fear of having to colour in. And then I've also got some samples to share with you, and I will just share a description of how I've added colour to those samples. I'm not going to demonstrate them in their entirety, and I hope that that will make sense as we get along. But as always, I'd like to start the session by saying, as well as thank you for joining me, just saying what's made me feel happy since I was last here. And the biggest thing that's made me happy since I was last here is Stampin' Up. I spent Thursday evening, all day Friday and all day Saturday attending here in my craft room a virtual event called On Stage, and this is the annual event by Stampin' Up where we have a new mini catalogue launch. We have a couple of events throughout the year, but On Stage is the big bonanza. It used to be called Convention, and then we changed its name to On Stage, and we used to do On Stage Live, where you actually get to go to the big shebang, the big convention, somewhere nice. And then we have On Stage Local for those who can't get to the big convention, but they get to also go to to be there in person, but locally. But since pandemic, we've had On Stage at home, and I have to say Stampin' Up have absolutely been amazing. They've developed a platform, a live platform that we all log into. We've had live presentations by demonstrators beamed to us on our screens. We have pre-recorded announcements. We have access to some fun tools. The platform has been brilliant, and I also just had enhanced fun because two of my team members were actually attending, and my best friend, and so we had a live messenger group video chat on mute so that we couldn't hear what was happening on the other screen, but we could message each other. And I spent a lot of time with pom-poms, like cheerleader pom-poms, going woohoo and yay, and just making gestures to the screen. Yes, I know, I'm crazy, but it helps, doesn't it? So not three things that have made me happy, just one massive thing. We've had a fab weekend. We've got to see lots of new products, both in a catalogue that's coming up for customers from the 3rd of January, but we've also seen those products being demonstrated, and that's what it's all about. So I'm going to say hello. I can see Helen and Barbara and Sylvia. My mum's joined us. I can see quite a few people have joined us. So talking of live demos, let's crack on. I'm going to spin my camera around, so just hold on to your hats. just make sure I spin that round, and let's get you facing down onto my workspace. I'm just going to try and get this in position, and I'm going to use a grid sheet again because the last time I was live I used a grid sheet and it didn't affect the camera focusing and refocusing, and I think that we're good there. I'm just going to pop an extra light on. Let's just bring that across, see if I can get rid of some of the shadows, and we'll get set up. So as always, I'll just remind you that if you're shopping with me online and you don't live locally, please enter this host code. This is current. Today is the 16th of November and this is current at the moment. Whenever it changes, you need to just keep your eye on my Facebook page, Izzy's Crafty Bees, on my Instagram feed, and I usually put the new one up there. Definitely on the Facebook page, it's usually pinned to the top. Any orders over £25 and you get a freebie from me. So I'm going to just quickly move on to that. I've left a reminder on my grid sheet. So long as that's not covered up, you should be able to see that throughout the session. So what am I going to share with you? Well, first of all, I'll show you the stamp set. I couldn't resist this stamp set. Anyone and everyone who knows me knows I love birds. And as soon as I saw this image, obviously it's a robin, I knew that I'd be able to colour it in like other garden birds, which I'm going to do, and I will be bringing you some samples. Well, probably just on my Instagram feed of other birds that I've coloured in, because I am one of the ones who loves colouring in. So it's a gorgeous stamp set. It has a matching punch, which I didn't purchase, and it is in the seasonal mini, which we also call the August to December mini. So you've got the mini catalogue that looks like this, August to December. And let me see if I can find, I've page marked everything. So the stamp set is available as a bundle, and it comes with a Holly Builder Punch. So it's one of the longer, and I haven't just got one on my, no, I haven't just got one on my shelf. It's one of the Builder Punches, the longer ones. And the whole bundle is £36.75, item number 156777, and that includes your stamp set and your punch, and that gives you a 10% discount. But I just got the stamp set. I just realised that I had lots of dies that also make holly, leaves and berries, so I didn't feel that I needed to add a punch to my collection. So the stamp set is £20. It's a red rubber cling stamp set with 9 stamps, and that item number is 156342. So what do I mean by red rubber and cling stamps? So the rubber is our lovely thick red rubber, really detailed. It has that layer of sponge and a sticky cling stamp, sticky cling label that will cling to your blocks nice and easily. So that's what I mean by red rubber and cling. So that's what we're going to use, and I'm going to share with you these projects. So my first card is dead simple, a really simple, I want to say single layer, but actually the sentiment's 2 layers. So just 2 layers, just 2 stamped images, a sentiment and an image. And as you can see, I've used heat embossing on this one, and I've used heat embossing throughout the 3 projects that I'm sharing with you. So it's something to think about adding to your craft room stash if you don't already have a heat tool and the products that I'm going to use today. I've just popped a bit of white baker's twine around that, and that's as simple as it gets. So it's just a small, it's a 10 centimetre by 10 centimetre square card. The second card is a bit more stepped up, so it has a little bit more technique involved. The robin has been stamped on a different colour cardstock, but again with copper heat embossing powder. And then I've just added a laser cut snowflake, and I'm going to go through all the products that I've used as I'm using them. And then I have actually added some die cut snowflakes in a copper foil cardstock. I've stamped straight ink to cardstock. I haven't heat embossed the sentiment on this one. So, but I've used the long DL sized card base just to make it a bit more special, and that ink blending background. And then I've kind of joined the two designs together and stepped it up a bit further. So now I've introduced a layer of vellum, which I've actually embossed with an embossing folder. I've done exactly the same technique for this card as I did for the first one. I've heat embossed the sentiment, and this time I've added some ribbon for some extra texture, and still kept the snowflake, the laser cut snowflake. So they're the three projects. What I do want to share with you, and I will do now, I think I will, is some how to stamp, well not how to, but how I stamped, so just so you can get some different looks with this card. I've stamped the robin and done a no line watercolour technique for this one. So for the artists or the budding artists among us that can't sketch, that's me. I love to watercolour, but I'm hopeless at sketching. I used the stamp to give me the outline, but because I stamped off and stamped on in a very pale grey, I was able then to add watercolour, and I've used watercolour cardstock for this one. And then for this one I've used very vanilla, and this one couldn't be simpler. I've stamped the image just straight using crumb cake ink, and then I've added colour by using a sponge dauber, and I'm just going to reach behind me and get one to show you if you're not familiar. A sponge dauber is like a finger dauber with a bit of sponge on the end. And we have these in multi-packs in the main catalogue, and I have lots of them, and you can keep them for sort of colour family inks, so you can sort of have like a red one, a blue one, a green one, a yellow one. Alternatively, you can wash them. Our ink is water-based, so you can actually wash them and dry them. And all I did with this was I dabbed my dauber into some crumb cake ink, and then I just smooshed it around. I didn't even take any care about where the edges were. I just smooshed it around onto the image. You could then go ahead and fussy cut this, or if you're neat enough, I think this one's fairly neat, then I used Cajun Craze for the robin redbreast. And that's a really simple, it couldn't be any easier to add colour. And then for this one I just went a little bit different, and I actually heat embossed by first using Versamark ink and then tapping my stamp into crumb cake ink, and sprinkled clear embossing powder and set the image. And then I used stamping blends, the alcohol markers, in a couple of different shades. So I actually built up the red breast using, I think, Real Red and Calypso Coral, and just blended them to get that red breast. Yeah, Calypso Coral, Pumpkin Pie and Real Red, and did a bit of a mix. And that's the benefit of the blends, is you can blend different colours together and they work really well. So that's 3 different ways of adding colour really simply. There are lots of other ways. You can actually use watercolour pencils. You could have a go at using our Stampin' Right markers if you're a really clever colouring inner. Really clever at colouring in. Let's get our grammar right. And now I want to just show you, these are all heat embossed with copper embossing powder, and I just wanted to show you the same kind of image heat embossed on different colour cardstock. So here I've got Night of Navy and heat embossed with silver. I've got Petal Pink, I think, heat embossed with gold, and I'm moving it around just so you can see that metallic image there. This one is Old Olive Green and heat embossed in gold again. This one I've got Misty Moonlight, I think. Yeah, Misty Moonlight, and this is gold and this is copper, and the copper looks super on the blue. It looks really lovely. It looks almost like a rose gold. This one is Merry Merlot cardstock, and here we've got gold, silver and copper. And I've also stamped and heat embossed the holly image that comes with the stamp set, and then I simply used Stampin' Blends in a couple of different colours to add a bit of extra tone on tone colour. So I've actually used Cherry Cobbler and Real Red, I think, in the middle for the berries, just to show you how you can add colour really simply. And then the last one is Mossy Meadow and Gold. So I hope that that just gives you an idea of actually it's quite simple stamping. And finally, I just want to share with you another project before we get on and I demonstrate how I made these. And here I've made a gift box that's been made to look like a book. So if you have any bookish friends, it's a lovely gift box. And I've chosen to use that really simple colouring in using the blends on this one. And I've die cut some snowflakes and a simple sentiment. And I made this box using our mini paper pumpkin gift boxes that come, you don't have to do any measuring and scoring to make the actual box. All I've done is I've amended or just altered. This had a front flap on the front of the box, and I've just trimmed that off, left the side flaps, and then I've decorated using cardstock. And it really couldn't be easier. So I've also just, I don't know if the camera's picking that up, I've added 3 scored lines there just so it looks like bookbinding. So I'm just reading, Rebecca, you're so new to this and you've been given lots of those gel type stamps and not sure what I need to use them. Well, you've come to the right place. Those gel type stamps are what we call photopolymer. So just for the benefit of anyone else watching, I'm just going to reach for a photopolymer stamp set just straight off the shelf. So that's these gel type, clear gel type stamps. And they are stamps exactly the same, you just need ink to stamp them with. The only difference between a photopolymer and a red rubber, you can see once it's on the block, a red rubber has a sponge layer underneath the red rubber. I'm just going to put my hand there so the camera will focus. So you get a sponge, when you stamp you get a little bit of cushioning. So the stamp is actually shock absorbed. With photopolymer, once you add it to a block, you don't get that cushioning. So what you need to add to your stamping platform, I'm going to say, the place where you're stamping, is some closed cell foam or a stamping pierce mat. And that just allows your stamp to have some cushioning between it and the paper, or actually the paper goes on top, you know what I mean. So it allows it to have some cushioning, and then you get better contact. The reason that you need cushioning is so that your stamp actually has contact, surface contact, for the whole surface area of the stamp. So if you're new to stamping and you want any tips or any help, I don't mind if you've got some existing stamps and they're not Stampin' Up. If you want to come to me for some advice and help, then please do so, and I'm more than happy just to give you some guidance, because I know that ultimately you might want some ink and some cardstock and some other stamp sets, so I'm happy to give help and advice and get you going. What I want is people to be creative. So let's crack on. I'm going to start with this card, and I'm just going to pop those other bits to one side. So I'm going to start with, and I've cut some bits and pieces. So I've got some measurements here for this card. Let me just pop that there and maybe you'll be able to read my writing. So it's a 10 by 10 card. So your base is actually 10 centimetres by 20 centimetres and you're scoring at 10. Then you need a piece of mint macaron cardstock that measures 8 centimetres by 8 centimetres, and you need a piece of petal pink, which I thought I'd cut somewhere. Let's just get all my bits out of my box. A piece of petal pink that is 1.5 centimetres by 7.5 centimetres for the sentiment. We need some Versamark ink. We need some copper embossing powder. I'm just going to get my box out and remind you how I store my embossing powders. So our embossing powders arrive with you in a little plastic tub, and then they have a peel off lid, and I store mine in an empty plastic food container with a lid, sometimes with a plastic spoon, and I always just drop my container inside. So I'm going to be using copper heat embossing powder throughout, so I'm going to just pop that there so it's handy. Move the lid over to one side. And I also need some baker's twine in white. Now we sell baker's twine in an essentials pack with 5 different colours, and I'm just going to use white. And actually the spool of white has more twine on it than the other colours because it's used, I think the idea is that we use white a little bit more. Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, please do message me later on and we can have a chat. So I also need my robin stamp, and I need my sentiment stamp, which was Happy Christmas. And we're good to go. And I'm going to take a seat now, so I won't just see comments for a little while, but I'll stand again in a while. Oh, we also need, crucially, our heat tool. And that's in the annual catalogue. I'm just going to remove my cup of tea out of danger zone. And let's get going. So the first thing I want to do is stamp my robin. Ooh. And I also want my Wink of Stella. And let's have a look. Some Petal Pink ink. And I think my Wink of Stella is this one. It might be that one. Ooh. Which one did I have out? Not that one. That one looks grubby. You know how things get. That one looks very grubby, but anyway, we'll have a Wink of Stella. So let's get going. I'm going to stamp my robin. I'm going to use an embossing buddy, which we don't sell anymore, but I keep messaging Stampin' Up, as do many other demonstrators. This is a small bag of a powder, and it's an anti-static tool. So whenever you're heat embossing, we want the heat embossing powder just to stick where our sticky ink goes and not where our sticky fingers go. So I'm just going to use the embossing buddy, and that should remove static and sort of any sticky finger residue. If you want to make one yourself at home, you can get an old or new, your choice, pop sock, cleanly washed of course if it is an old one, and you can fill it with a bit of corn flour or a bit of baby powder and just tie a knot in the end, and that should do the same kind of thing. And I've got a feeling that that's probably why Stampin' Up stopped selling them, because people were making their own. I just find it handy to have something like that made. So I'm using Versamark ink, filthy, disgusting Versamark ink pad, but it's used and loved. Now Versamark is a sticky ink. You can tell how long I've had this one. It's still got my maiden name. We've been married 10 years next year. So you can re-ink these with the Versamark re-inker. And I'm taking my ink pad to my stamp for the simple reason that the stamp is bigger than the ink pad, and I know I've got good coverage then. And I'm going to stamp my robin, sort of not bang in the middle, because I know I want my sentiment to be there, so I'm going to pop the robin a bit nearer the top. So I've put my stamp straight down and I'm applying just some pressure, some nice even pressure. I'm no rocking and rolling, and then lifting that up, and you should be able to see a pale image. Now I'm going to bring in my heat embossing powder in copper, and I'm going to sprinkle some of that all over because that's a sticky ink. Now the embossing powder's sticking to the actual image. I'm just tapping off the excess. And I'm not going to touch it because it's, although the powder is stuck to the ink, it isn't set. So this is when I'm going to use my embossing tool, my heat gun. So I'm going to switch my heat gun on to number 2 setting, and I'm actually going to heat. Now once I feel the heat building, I'm going to switch to heating it from underneath so that you can actually see the magic happen. So let me just see if I can hold that underneath. You need to make sure you keep your heat tool moving. There we can see the heat, the magic happening. It's turning metallic. You need to always make sure you keep your heat tool moving. We don't want to scorch the paper, and we certainly don't want to burn fingers. And that's a real wow technique. For anyone who's pretty new to stamping, I know I've got a couple of newbies, so Rebecca's not done any before, and I know Helen's watching, and Helen's new to my team as well. So if you're new to stamping, one more ink pad to add to your craft room is the Versamark ink and a heat tool. And the heat tools are not expensive. In fact, I'm going to just reach for my catalogue. It's here, and we're just going to have a real quick look at tools in my catalogue, and I've got everything tabbed here. So let's see if I can find it pretty quickly. You can never find anything quickly when you want to. Oh, here we go. No, can't find it. That's the index. Let's see, let's whiz through. But it really isn't an expensive tool, and it's really worth having, I think. There we go, it's on that big page that has everything on. So the heat tool is £28, so it's not an expensive tool. Just make sure you order the one with the UK plug on it, not the European plug. So we've got our Pretty Robin, all heat embossed in copper metallic. Now you can see the heat tool does bend your card a little bit, but once you've stuck it down it'll be absolutely fine. And now I am going to add a tiny bit of colour. Don't know if you can see if I hold this up. I've given the Robin a very pale pink breast, so I'm going to do that using Petal Pink ink, and I'm giving that a squeeze as hard as I can to add some ink to the lid of the ink pad. And I'm going to use Wink of Stella, which is our lovely sparkly pen, and I'm just squeezing to get that running. And I'm going to pick up some ink with Wink of Stella, and I'm just going to add that, and you will see it. Wink of Stella is an alcohol based ink, so you will see that turn green, and then I'm just going to brush that off on my grid sheet to make sure I get rid of the pink residue. And the other thing you must remember, if you've used Wink of Stella to give it a bit of a shimmer in the lid, the next time you squeeze you're going to transfer that shimmer, so you must wipe that out of the lid with a piece of kitchen towel. So I'm going to waft that about, and then I'm going to heat emboss the Happy Christmas sentiments. I'm going to do exactly the same technique. Ink up with that sticky Versamark, line that up on my piece of card, holding my breath to make sure I get it straight because my head's not over the top of it. Let's hope that that's somewhere near straight. Oh, it's as crooked as anything. Let's use the emergency side, see if we can do a bit better. Let's use a line. I'm going to put that across the top of that solid line and see if I can do any better. Oh dear. Whatever we get this time we're going with. Well, it'll have to do. Now this is a tiny thing, so I'm going to hold it while I heat emboss it using a clothes peg so I don't burn my fingers and I don't smudge. So you can use tweezers or whatever, but I find one of those sprung clothes pegs is handy. I didn't use my embossing buddy, I forgot. And there we go, we've got some nice even coverage, and I'm bringing my heat gun back in. Ta-da! Lovely. So it's very simple. It's a really simple technique, but it's a real wow technique as well. Now I'm going to just show you how I made the card base. I'm going to bring in my trimmer and actually trim this card base on camera. Let's just move all of those bits to one side. Because, oh, here's my trimmer. Here we go. Because we're going to get the card base for this card and for the long card out of one sheet of A4. So I've got one sheet of A4, basic white thick cardstock, and I'm going to trim off, putting it in landscape, and I'm going to trim off at 10 centimetres. I'm just going to pop that piece to one side, and I'm going to then turn it round and I'm going to score at 10. Oh no, first thing, because A4 is 21 centimetres wide, I'm going to trim off a further 1 centimetre. Now you can choose to save this scrap for little tiny sentiments, or like I do, pop it in recycling, because anything that's a centimetre is just too small for me. Now I'm going to score it at 10 centimetres, so I've moved this edge to 10 and I'm going to bring in the scoring tool and score at 10, and now we've got our card base. And so that's our card base for this square card. Now I'm going to bring back in my piece that I've trimmed off for the other card. I'm just going to do a quick measure to make sure which way round I've got it. So let's have a look. So this would be the width of your A4 at 21, and we've got 20 centimetres left. So I'm going to score with the 20 cent, so this is the 20 centimetre width. I'm going to pop that in and I'm going to score it at 10. So now I've got my long card base that's the width of A4, 21, and I've scored it at 10. So we've got our nice long card base popped to one side for the next project. So yes, Helen, the scoring tool. So this is my trimmer. This is a trimmer, and it has a scoring tool and a blade for cutting. And I'm not doing too much trimming and cutting on this demonstration because I've prepped the majority of pieces ready. So now we can go ahead and we can assemble this simple card. First thing I'm going to do is tie some baker's twine around. So we take our baker's twine in white and just pull that off a bit, and I'm going to lay that across and go around once and twice, and I'm going to cut off at this side. And then you can choose. I chose to have my bow just to one side because I have a bit of a thing about not having everything dead in the middle, but we're all different, so you can tie yours wherever you fancy. Ooh. This is where I always get fumble fingers when I'm on air. You can tell. When I'm crafting here quietly on my own with just me and the radio on, I never fumble. I never faff. And the minute you get live on air, you get all fumbly and faffy. There we go. And we'll just slide that down so that the twine can be underneath the Happy Christmas. But what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to stick this layer on first and then pop my sentiment on last. So you can see my card's having a bit of a bounce around. Use my bone folder just to burnish that crease a bit more, and then it'll lie nice and flat and stop bouncing about. And I'm going to use, let me have a think. What's my glue I'm going to use? I think I will use liquid glue for this one. So I'm going to run a bead around the edge, just use my... And the reason I moved my twine up a little bit was just so I could get plenty of glue down this bottom end, and now I can move the twine back down, just give it a slide. And I'm going to stick that straight down to my card base. of glue there, but that doesn't matter because my sentiment's going there. Just going to move that because it's annoying. You can see how that heat embossing just curled the card a bit, so I'm just taking a bit more extra time to put some pressure on and make sure that that card's stuck down nicely. I will faff with that bow in a minute. I'm going to stick down my sentiment. I can feel a sneeze brewing. Excuse me. Oh dear, excuse me. There we go. And let's have a faff. Does that bow need faffing about with? Sometimes twine behaves itself and sometimes it just goes all twiddly. But at the end of the day, I think that looks really pretty. Now if you wanted to, of course, you could bling that up a bit more. You could pop some sequins on, you could put some glitter on, you could even swap the twine for some ribbon. But I just wanted to make a really simple card using that technique of heat embossing, just to get us going for this demonstration as well, just to show you how heat embossing works. But also I think it's dead handy to have these little cards that are pretty simple. You saw how quick that was to make. If I wanted to do a production line, I could quickly make a dozen of those, just get myself all the cardstock cut, everything all organised, and quickly make a dozen of those. If you've got a kind of network where you need to send lots of little cards, maybe colleagues at work or church groups, for example, or social clubs. So yes, that's card number 1. Let's pop you over there. Now let's have a look at card number 2, which is this one. Oh, here we go. And what did I write down on my sticker here? Slim card. Oh, I didn't write myself anything because I knew that I was going to actually cut the card base live. So we need a piece of petal pink cardstock as a scrap, and I think I've actually got myself prepped for that as well. Piece of petal pink. We need a white scrap. We need a card base, which I've just cut. We need some copper foil and a scrap of white for the sentiment. We also need a beautiful snowflake. So these laser cut snowflakes are in our Christmas mini, and there are 24 in a pack, so you get 6 to a sheet, and they're already laser cut and they're really easy to just pop off the sheet. Really pretty. So if you don't have a die cutting machine but you want some die cuts, really pretty. So we need one of those. Now I want to just show you how much waste there is on the actual die cut. So I intend to snip this waste off and do some die cut snowflakes using my snowflake dies, which I will also be sharing with you, although it looks very much like I've tidied them away. The tidy girl that I am, I think I've had a bit of a tidy up. So let's have a quick look in the mini catalogue and let me show you. So I took my colour inspiration from this suite, the Whimsy and Wonder suite, which has been incredibly popular this season. I really like these colours in the actual suite. Polished Pink and Blushing Bride, Mossy Meadow, Mint Macaron, Misty Moonlight. Now Blushing Bride is not my favourite pink, so I've chosen to use Petal Pink. It's a little bit more, Petal Pink's a little bit more on the, I want to say orange spectrum. It's on the more peachy spectrum than Blushing Bride, which is a bit more sugared almond. But the iridescent wonderful snowflakes are actually in this catalogue here on page 25, and they're £5.50, and you get 24 of those beautiful big snowflakes in that pack. So that's where to find them if you want to get hold of some of them. If you don't have a die cutting machine, like I say, it's a really good way of getting some die cut imagery onto your projects. I do need to just quickly grab those snowflakes, so bear with me. cross that I didn't leave them out because I've got that many dies. I won't be able to find them now. Not that one. Not that one. Just talk amongst yourselves. I will be back any minute. I promise. How annoying. So many snowflakes. There they are, little monkeys. So this is a set of dies that were in the Christmas catalogue last year, and they got carried over into the annual catalogue this year, and you get lots and lots of snowflakes in the die set, and this is the little one I'm going to be using to cut those really pretty copper snowflakes out. Ooh, let's just stick that back in there. Good. Okay, so let's get cracking. Enough waffle, Isabel. Again, I'm going to burnish my fold using my bone folder, and that just helps my card base to lie nice and flat and stop it springing up. I'm going to create that lovely blended background first of all, so I'm going to reach for my mint macaron ink pad, and I'm going to use a Stampin' Blends blending brush. And these come in a pack of 3, and I've only got one pack of 3, and I just keep them for the different colours in the rainbow. So this one I use for the reds and purples and pinks, oranges and yellows, and this one's for my blues and greens. And you clean them really simply. I'm just going to grab a microfiber cloth. You can wash them. I've not washed any of mine since I got them. Lazy girl. I like to be tidy, but you know, sometimes I'm a bit lazy with other things. So I'm going to go round and round on my ink pad and pick up some ink on the brush. And usually I would say just tap it off first, but as we're going to cover the centre, I'm just going to go straight on to the cardstock. So round and round on the ink, pick up some ink, straight into the middle, and use a circular motion. I'm using a little bit of pressure with my index finger, round and round, round and round on the ink pad, pick up some ink, and round, and you just keep going until you've got that lovely blended soft background. Now the other way of making this card layout would be to put an extra layer behind, so you could have a layer of cardstock perhaps, a layer of designer series patterned paper behind, but I've just chosen to add ink. It's a nice technique. Now one thing you do have to remember when you're working on a fresh clean card and you're not adding any extra layers is keep your fingers ink free, because as you're moving your card and holding it you might get inky fingerprints. I'm just going to close my ink pad, and then like I say, I've had ink on this brush. If I wanted to clean it, I'm using a lint free, although not bits free it would appear, a lint free microfiber cloth, and I'm just going to give it a whiz round on there. It just takes off any excess for next time if I want to pick it up and use blue. And that's that. The other thing, I don't know if you can see, if I hold it up, I've splattered the background as well, and it just sort of, I like a crisp clean card, but it just takes away the blankness of that crisp clean card. So I've used a Stampin' Up marker, and I've used a mint macaron one because we're sticking with the same colour scheme, and I've used the brush end, which is denoted by the fat line there, and I've just popped it inside the lid and flicked, and it just adds some splatters. Not very controllable, it's a random technique, but it just adds some ink splatters to your projects. So that's how I achieved that. Now we're going to pop my card blank to one side, or my card base to one side, and I'm going to work on that cheeky robin, and it's exactly the same technique as I used for the first card. So I need my sticky Versamark ink, I need my cheeky robin. And we're going to get good coverage of Versamark. And we're going to stamp, and it doesn't matter which way round because we're going to fussy cut, so I'm just going to stamp it straight down. And again, I forgot to use my embossing buddy, so I'm going to get it out of the packet and leave it right on top of my Versamark ink this time. Just to remind me, now I want to bring back in my copper embossing powder. And give it a good old sprinkle. Tap the back. And then bring in my heat gun. Working completely, what's the word? Cack-handed, I think. Everything's all on the wrong side. Did anybody say, ooh, has that started to go? Or is it just me? Now I'm just going to have a glance. Okay, that's good. I can see comments are still there, so that's good. I'm still live. Now I'm going to fussy cut my robin. Again, apologies, because I think some people either love fussy cutting or hate it, but there isn't a matching die with this stamp. The punch that goes with the bundle is holly leaves and berries, which is no good for you guys who don't like fussy cutting, but stick with me. It's worth it in the end. The other way you could do this card and get a similar look, if you really absolutely hate fussy cutting, or perhaps have a reason why you can't fussy cut, maybe your mobility in your fingers is not so good, is you could stamp and heat emboss the robin onto a circle of card. So you could die cut a circle and that would look just as nice, and you could still add that iridescent snowflake behind. Now fussy cutting just means cutting all the way around an image. And for that one I've just cut as near to the edge of the line as I could. And these snips from Stampin' Up make fussy cutting a lot easier. I mean, mine are absolutely filthy, I've got glue and all sorts, but they do make fussy cutting. I was having a chat with a teammate the other day who had been using some other craft scissors for years and years, and then bought her Stampin' Up snips and couldn't believe the difference, and then lost her Stampin' Up snips and couldn't believe that she'd lost them, and was feeling pretty fed up about it, but I think she's still looking, or she might just order herself a new pair. So I'm going to just kind of what I call dry assemble this card, just start to position things. I always do this when I'm making a card, when I'm designing a card, I always get my elements together and then sort of lay it on. I need to stamp my sentiment, and I've got myself a piece of white, which I think is 1.5, oh no, it's 2 centimetres by about 9 centimetres, and I'm going to do a straightforward stamp. So Christmas blessings to you and yours, and I'm going to stamp that with mint macaron, not Macron, not President Macron, mint macaron, not macaroon, macaron. Now, because I've been blending and lifting ink from the middle of my ink pad, I'm just going to test that that's not faded. See, I added ink, tap, 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 but I moved my stamp around my ink pad because I knew I'd been blending, and sometimes that just and straight down, a bit of pressure and straight up. Sometimes it just lifts too much ink from the centre of your ink pad. And I'm just going to fancify, that's a technical term, my sentiment by simply snipping across. And I think I will also snip, let me see which way I need to snip, snip, snip that way, snip across at that end. Just snip it, don't think about it, just snip it. So that's as fancy as that's getting as a sentiment. And now I just need to die cut a couple of these little snowflakes. I'm using some copper foil, and this is the brushed copper foil, and that was in the seasonal Christmas book last year and then carried over into the seasonal Christmas book this year. No, it didn't. I'm lying. Did it? Oh, am I lying? Am I fibbing, or am I telling the truth? It did indeed get carried across into the Christmas book this year, and it's 12 inches by 12 inches, and you get 6, 2 of each colour, so you actually get bronze, copper and gold, and I'm using the copper one. It's lovely because it has that brushed effect across it, and it's really good. £14 for 6 single-sided sheets, single-sided in that there's nothing on the other side, and they're 12 by 12, so you get a lot of foiled sheets there, because if you're only die cutting or punching small images like that, I'm going to just bring in my little machine, I think. Let me have a look. Which plates have I got here? Let's have a look. Yeah, I'm going to bring in my little machine. It's probably going to slip and slide around because I've got a grid sheet, but there you go. It's small enough. So I just need my regular sandwich, plate 1 and plate 2. I need my cardstock I'm cutting from, and then my die goes face down. And my top plate, and I'm slightly overlapping them so that it will feed in easily. And I only need a couple of these, so it won't take a tick. Now I've got a sneak for you. I found this was working really well. You know, my latest favourite tool. It's not going to work now, I'm on camera. But I used my, there you go, look, I used my lint roller just to get the die out. That works really well. We do have a die brush and a pokey tool that we usually use for poking these bits out of the dies. But this is the only bit of die cutting I'm going to do, because for the last card I've got something pre-cut that we might do a bit of a vote on. So there you go, the card's stuck in the die. We use the lint roller and it pops out. I'm rather liking that accidental. Found that out by accident, and it also takes little bits out the middle. Woohoo! There we go. Let's get rid of all of that to one side. And the mini machine. Let's see what we've got. So here we go. We can now start to assemble. I'm just going to make sure I'm moving my grid sheet. Are we still in shot? Yes, we are. Hurrah! Okie dokie. So we can kind of just assemble, decide where we want things. So I want my snowflake over there, and I want my robin standing nicely, not falling over, and we want a couple of snowflakes to finish it all off. So I'm going to use a glue dot for the snowflake. We don't need to worry about putting glue. Oh, come on. I was watching Lorna last night. Did anybody watch Lorna last night? I think Shaz did. And Lorna had the opposite problem to me. Lorna had very hot glue dots that were all sticky and gooey. And my craft room's not very warm today, so I've got glue dots that are a bit cold. When they're cold, they go quite stiff. So if you're finding that they're not pulling off with your projects, I'm going to use them think I'm going to use glue dots with my... So we should be able to stick them on and just lift them off. You're seeing it's staying behind. So you can warm them up a bit. If you've got warm hands, you can warm them up. Maybe just huff on them. And then they should behave a bit better. It's still not behaving. It is quite cold in here. I just didn't want to be absolutely boiling hot. And I'm going to leave that one on there. In fact, let's just pop that one on there as well. And then if you're die cutting tiny pieces of things and you're using glue dots, you can actually stick them all around your glue dot spool, and then you're not die cutting them. How many of us have die cut little things and then they've just got stuck somewhere and lost onto the floor and we can't find them? I'm going to stick Robin on with a sponge dimensional. I'm going to stick it right in the middle of his tummy, and I'm going to actually just use my fingers to curl him round. And I'm going to just hold this up to camera so you can see the shape I've made with my Robin. Can you see that? So I've made it kind of, so it looks a bit three-dimensional, which is the, I'm going to use his tail to cover the centre of the snowflake. And just make sure he's standing upright. Happy with that. And then I'm going to stick my sentiment across using dimensionals, and then I can poke the snowflakes underneath. So because I know I'm poking the snowflakes underneath, I need to take care where I actually pop my dimensionals. So I know I can have, it's just about thinking, I know I can have one there, but when it comes to this end, I think I'm going to actually pop one about a third of the way in. I'm usually fairly frugal with my dimensionals. I do see other crafters absolutely covering the back of their bits and pieces with dimensionals, but at the end of the day, it's just got to be stuck on, and we don't need to spend all of our money on adhesives, do we? Can't tell whether that's straight or not. Personally, I'd rather be a bit more frugal with adhesive. So let's just slide a snowflake behind. See if we can have that just overlapping. That looks quite cute. And let's have a snowflake. Come on. I've left the dot behind. Oh, come on, sticky dot. There we go. And let's poke a snowflake behind. And I think we could call that done. And you see, I don't think that took too long. Where are we at time-wise? Oh, we're okay. Lots of talking. So, yeah, I think we've done that one now. Let's have a look at the last card. Just get rid of some of these bits off my desk. I'll just pop those to one side. And so our last card, we're building it up and we're going for another technique here. We're going for some dry embossing as well with this vellum piece. So let's have a look at the bits and pieces that I need. So I need a card base, I need a square of mint macaron, a piece of white, basic white for the sentiment, and I need a piece of vellum for the layer. I need a white card base, which I think I've cut somewhere, maybe I haven't. Let's have a look. Basic white, thick. I think I had cut a piece, but I hadn't scored it, that's correct. So let me just get that out. So, I'm going to get my trimmer again. Pop that there and just double check what we have here. And I think that that's a piece, yes. So I just needed to score this at 10.5. So that's half a piece of A4 cardstock, moving my cutting blade out of the way, and I'm just going to score that at 10.5 to make my card base. And so this is repetitious. I'm going to do exactly the same as I did for the first card, but now we're going to add some extra dimensions to the whole card, in that we're going to use this piece of vellum. So I'm just going to move everything out of the way while I show you how I added that extra texture. So if I hold this up to the camera, and I'm just going to slide that piece of mint macaron underneath, you can see that I've embossed it using an embossing folder, and it just gives it some extra texture. It probably just doesn't come out on camera. unless I tip it to the side. But you can certainly see it when you're holding the project in your hand. You can certainly see that. So I'm going to just bring in, this time I'm going to have to use the big Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine because the embossing folder won't go through. And I'm using this embossing folder, and I've forgotten the name of it. That's really marvellous. And we put our piece of vellum inside the folder. So I'm going to just show you the folder. So the folder, that's what the folders look like. And I always write on mine hinge forward and the number of the plates that I'm going to use to make the sandwich. So I'm going to place the vellum inside the folder, close the folder, and pop that on plate number 1. Then I'm going to use plate number 4 on top and just wind that through. Out of the way. Now let's recenter ourselves, and I can show you what the vellum looks like when it's been embossed, and it just gives it that added texture. It's lovely as embossed vellum. It's a really lovely product to use. You can see it does curl, so we do have to just maybe manipulate it back without creasing it. I just want to grab the catalogue so I can tell you what that embossing folder is called. So let's have a look quickly towards the back. Here we go, and it's actually Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder. And the embossing folders are around, they're £8.25, the majority of. Some of them are just slightly different. So have we got all our bits and pieces? I nearly fell off my chair then. So I've got my vellum, I've got my square of mint macaron, I've got my piece for my sentiment, and so we're just going to go ahead and do exactly the same. This time I'm going to remember to use my embossing buddy because I'm going to be using the whole square of that piece of card. I'm going to bring back my robin. Sometimes I worry about whether if I'm being too repetitious it's a bit boring to watch as a demonstration, but I do think that the more you repeat things, the more likely it is that you will perhaps understand if you've not done this before, or pick up tips about how I do things. Maybe if you've tried heat embossing before and not really got good results. The key thing is to handle it very carefully because that ink is still wet, so you don't want to smudge it. You want to scoop your embossing powder and sprinkle it liberally. And if you're uncertain, give it another sprinkle and then give it a tap on the back or a flick, and that just flicks off any excess. Now I'm just going to explain the technical element of heat embossing if you are new. Embossing powder is simply finely granulated plastic powder. And we've stuck it to some sticky ink, and now we're going to melt the plastic in situ in the image that we've stamped using the heat tool. So it's nothing more complicated than that. Just got to switch hands. I'm just giving it a first warm. So this is just applying some heat, and that just gets the cardstock warmed up. But I'm going to heat it from behind so you can see the magic happen. You can continue heating it from the top, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just going to switch that round a bit so I don't burn my fingers. And you can see that embossing powder melting now and becoming metallic in colour. There we go, so we've got our robin again. I'm going to just stamp and heat emboss the sentiment while we've got the embossing powder. So again, I'm going to just try and get this nice and straight and central this time because I want to punch the ends of this sentiment. So there's just another added bit of fancy, I'm going to bring in my trusty clothes peg again. And, oh, rookie error. This is what sometimes happens as well when you're not concentrating, and I've had this happen in class. So we're all crafters, we all do this, where someone's gone to heat with the heat tool and not actually added the embossing powder. So there you go. Make sure there's plenty on. Give that a flick from behind. Taking care not to touch it before it's been set. And now you can see I've got, oh, you might not be able to see, some embossing powder just sticking to the cardstock because I didn't use the embossing buddy. It's just stuck where I've handled it, so I'm using a dry paintbrush to just move that embossing powder off. And let's just set that with the heat tool. There we go. And again, if you're new to heat embossing, you only need to heat it until you see it turn. If you overheat it, it can sometimes turn back into granules. And you think, oh, I've not heated it enough, when actually you've overheated it and it's turned back to granulated. So before we stick this one on, I'm going to use a punch. I'm going to use this twin punch that gives us some nice fancy label ends. I don't know if the light's actually shining too much, but we can see the shapes. And I'm actually going to use the fanciest side, and I'm going to feed that in. Now we've got these gauges where we can actually cut the cardstock perfectly to size, and you can see that mine's slightly too wide. It's too narrow for the top one, it's slightly too wide for the middle one, but I just shove it in anyway. Do you know? I just look from behind. I don't think about the bottom of that piece touching the edge, the end. I actually look. I'm just going to see if I can describe it. Let me pick something up so I can point. I actually look that my cardstock is lined up equally on the shoulder. So I've got an equal shape, and then I punch it. And if I pull that out, you'll see what I mean. I've got a nice equal shape at that end, and then I just shove it in the other end. Technical term, I'm just wondering whether that might be a bit too long, but anyway, we'll go with it. Let's just go with it. Shove in the other end, and I'm just again looking that I'm equal. I'm not paying any, I'm just giving it half a nip, so I've just nipped it just to hold it. I'm not paying any attention to this edge here. I'm paying attention here and here to make sure that that's even. So then I've got two nice pretty ends that are even, and I think that will work on the card. It's maybe a tad too long, but hey, it's still going to work, so it's absolutely fine. A really handy punch to have in your kit. So now I think we could start to assemble, but you'll notice I haven't die cut any snowflakes yet, because I remembered some other special sparkly paper that we've got, and I think I've got another delivery. How do they deliver things on a Tuesday when I'm live? There's a man in a van outside. So I have actually die cut 2 rose gold pink sparkly snowflakes, which I think we're going to use because it looks lovely with that ribbon. Oh no, he's gone. Oh, that's a good do. He's gone, that man. That's rather good. Although it was special last time I had a delivery, because it was flowers for me from my mummy. Right, so now we can assemble. Let's crack on and do this assembly. I'm going to stick my vellum down first. I'm actually only going to adhere the vellum in the centre. Vellum is a funny product to stick down because sometimes you can actually see the glue underneath. If you use a tape runner, you can see the tape. If you use a liquid glue. And what I found with liquid glue is if you actually pop it on a little bit and then you tap it and just make it tacky, you can actually get away with that and you can't see it through once it's stuck down. But for today I'm going to use Stampin' Seal, And the other thing I would normally not say is if you've embossed, dry embossed anything with an embossing folder, I wouldn't use a tape runner because it will squish the embossing that you've done. But because this is a piece, I've put the glue in the middle, the tape in the middle, you're not actually going to see the middle anyway. So that's stuck down, it's not stuck down around the edges, but it lays nice and flat. Now I'm going to stick down my robin layer. Oh, I didn't put any Wink of Stella on his chest, so I'm just going to get that squished bit of ink. Let's go with my Wink. Pick up some of that ink with the Winky brush, and we'll just add. I think I've picked up the old Wink of Stella brush that's a little bit dry. Give it a squeeze. That's a bit better. I'm just going to, let me just clean that off and clean that out of the lid. I'm just going to hold up my first one for you. Let's just see, you can see now that Wink of Stella's just glistening, and it's just given that robin a rosy glow. It's not really a red breast, it's a rosy glow. So I'm going to stick this layer on with dimensionals, but I know that I want to stick the big snowflake, so I've lost my snowflakes now. I think I put them down over here. Good job you can't see what goes on behind the camera because there's just stuff everywhere. So with this one I'm going to step it up another notch. I was going to just use a plain snowflake, well, a pretty iridescent snowflake, not just a plain snowflake, but one of these snowflakes from the pack. But what I did last night was I also used my snowflake dies, which I've abandoned over here, and I cut this one, I believe, this one, also from the sparkly pink, and I'm going to actually remember what this sparkly pink stuff is called and show you in the catalogue. And I stuck an iridescent snowflake on the top, and it looks like this. Ta-da! How cute is that? So I'm actually going to pop that one underneath, and really, so now our card's getting really stepped up. And we're going to have pink snowflakes, and we're going to have a bit of pink ribbon. So we're really going to town now. This is what we will call an avid card for avid crafters, and I'm going to just measure my bit of ribbon. Let's have a look. There we go, a bit of ribbon for some more texture, and look at how sparkly this is. I think that just looks gorgeous with that sparkle underneath. Now I'm going to start by sticking my robin down with some dimensionals, but I'm not going to put a dimensional in this corner. I'm going to pop one in each of the other corners. So one there, one there, and one there, and leave that corner just free. Oh, I've taken them off. What am I like? What am I like? So once that's down straight, I can pop this snowflake under nice and carefully, and we can get to see some of it hopefully. That's it. I'll pop that in that corner. I'm just taking care that it doesn't stick off the edges of the card, because we still want to actually be able to put it in an envelope. So now I know it'll go under there, I'm going to actually pop a couple of glue dots underneath. Let's have a look. Naughty glue dots. Come on. There we go. So a couple of glue dots underneath, and I can carefully slide Oh, what's occurring? I knew I hadn't taken the backing off one of those dimensionals. I can slide that under. There, and we can stick that down. It's looking nice and shiny. Happy with that. I'm going to use some tape glue for the back of my ribbon. So I'm using some tear and tape on the back of that ribbon. And the reason I'm not using wet glue is because the ribbon will just soak it up. I prefer to use a tape glue. I'm just going to lay that across there. And then I'm going to add my sentiment and finish it off with these sparkly snowflakes. So I'm going to pop a couple of dimensionals on the back of there. So really, you know, this card may not go through the post. It might end up being a large letter because of all these dimensionals, but this is a super card if you're going to be hand delivering something a bit special. The more layers, the better for me. I love all the different layers. Again, we'll use some glue dots. And we'll pop one up there, just like the other card, and one next to the sentiment. There we go. Finito. So, same but different, as is my catchphrase. Just by adding that extra layer of sparkle, we've added another feeling of luxury, shall we say. Another not a technique as such, but just another layer of loveliness. We can't have enough layers of loveliness. So let's recap what we've done. We've taken the same kind of design, but we've stepped it up. So we've learned how to do heat embossing if you didn't know already, but we've just added a tiny blush to each robin using a wink of Stella. So no fancy colouring in techniques. Nothing to put anybody off who doesn't really like colouring in. But we've added a bit of luxury to the robin by using some metallic heat embossing. And then we've stepped that up a little bit by doing a blended ink background and adding some different elements. Oh, and that one's just gone a bit squished there. So for this one, we've just added some elements by doing some die cutting and adding one of these pre-made snowflakes. And this one, we've stepped it up even more. We've added another layer of vellum, which we've embossed just to make it feel really nice and textured. We've done exactly the same with our robin, no colouring in techniques apart from adding a cheeky blush with a bit of wink of Stella. And then we've added some die cut elements and some pre-made elements. So I hope you've enjoyed that, how to add a robin without colouring in, and is not boring. I hope you'll agree that this robin is certainly not boring. And let me just lay those cards out. So, like so. Let's have a look. I think that's the one that I made just now. And that one perhaps. No, that was my original. There we go. So they're the ones we've just made. Let's lay them out and see if they're in the camera. Yes, that looks nice. So we've got our finished projects, and I hope you've enjoyed watching. I will just remind you of the other colouring in techniques that were really simple. So you can use a sponge dauber to add some colour. You can use watercolours if you're feeling proficient with watercolours, and that no line watercolour technique is ever so easy to do. You stamp off onto your grid sheet, stamp onto your cardstock, and then watercolour. And you can heat emboss using clear ink, and you can add colour with your stamping blends. And I'm just going to whiz back round because I've got some other tiny things. Oh, I just want to show you actually where this sparkly paper's from. I just remembered that I did page mark it here. So it's on the Speciality Basics on page 135 of the annual catalogue, and it's tucked right down in this corner. I have spotlighted this before in another project, and it's the Gold and Rose Gold 6" by 6" speciality paper. It's only £4.75 for a pack, and you get 8 sheets of 6" by 6", and it's beautiful. It's almost like a vinyl wallpaper, but that shimmer and shine. So it's not like glitter paper. It's got like a scratched or etched surface, and it comes in this rose gold and your normal yellow gold, and it really is beautiful stuff. A little bit goes a long way, as you can see with these tiny snowflakes that I die cut. So that's where that's from. Let me just finish off, because I've got a couple of things and I can't remember what they were, and I've got them somewhere. Oh, I wanted to also show you what the mini paper pumpkin box looks like when it arrives. So the book project that I made using the mini paper pumpkin flat packed box. Now you get 10 in a pack. These are in the annual catalogue as well, and the only thing you have to do is pop those 4 little bits out there. Come on out. Those 4 bits, and then you just have to simply burnish all of the score lines and assemble the box. So each box looks, and they're food safe, that's what I wanted to say. So they have a matte finish on one side and a shiny finish on the other, and the idea is that the shiny finish goes on the inside if you want to give homemade cookies, because it's a fairly flat box, so it'd have to be biscuits or cookies, maybe some gingerbread men or something, gingerbread people to be gender correct. I'm a child of the 70s, come on. It was always gingerbread men. Okay, so you very simply assemble your box like so, and the reason you pop those slots out earlier was so that these tabs can locate in the holes, and that holds it all together. So you've got your mini box, and all I did with mine to make it into a book was I simply cut this front flap off entirely, and then I decorated the front and the back and added ribbon before I actually, oh golly, throwing things everywhere, come back Robbins, before I actually added the cardstock to the front and back. I fastened my length of ribbon, and I didn't use a ribbon all the way round. I just added a length of ribbon about this long and stuck it to the lid of the box and the base of the box. Then it is simply 2 pieces of cardstock, one for the front, one for the back, and a piece of pretty pattern paper for the spine, which I curled. I didn't fold or bend round, I actually curled it using my bone folder and stuck it along the front, added a piece of gold, and then decorate the front how you will. So that's how I did that, and these are in the annual catalogue, and they come in a pack of 10. So really simple gift box. I'm going to just swing you back round so you can say goodbye and I can say goodbye. Let me just pop my camera. And I'm back in the room. Let me see if I can adjust myself. There you go. Oh, gosh. So I hope you've enjoyed the demonstration. A couple of things just to housekeep right at the end, of course. We've got some offers on at the moment. We're in the start of a sale. If you visit my Facebook page, we have 10% off ink, 15% off, I've got that the wrong way around, 10% off cardstock, 15% off ink, I think, 20% off dies. So if you love the snowflake dies, for example, from the annual catalogue, 20% off. If you're wanting to stock up on ink and cardstock over the next 2 days, that's when to do it. We also have an amazing joining offer. So even if you're not thinking about being a demonstrator like I am, demonstrating and running live demonstrations and classes, but you want to get your hands on Stampin' Up kit, then it's a really great time to think about joining my team. For £75, you can join my team and actually choose £130 worth of product, because the starter kit is fully customisable. You can just add it as if you were placing an order for £135 worth of product, but just pay £75. You're under absolutely no obligation to do anything else than get your kit, use it, make some pretty stuff, and let me see what you've made. You don't need to be obliged to demonstrate, to sell, to do anything other than use your kit and love it. And by the way, if you love it, tell other people that you love it. And why not spread the word that you love it? You might have friends who are crafty, invite them round to yours and get them crafting, and then they might love some stuff and they might want to buy it too, in which case, while you are technically a demonstrator, you can make a sale. You get 20% commission. You also get 20% discount on everything that you buy, so long as you're a demonstrator. You will automatically be a demonstrator for 3 months as a minimum, but you're under no obligation to do anything in that 3-month period other than use the stuff that you've ordered. So hopefully, I get lots of technical questions and lots of I am too scared to do this questions when I talk about joining my team. There is absolutely no pressure whatsoever from me to do anything other than join up, get your kit, use it and have fun, and share your makes with me, because I love to see what everybody's making. Of course, I'm here to guide you and help you as well, so any questions you only have to ask. I have a friendly team chat group and we all help each other. I also have a very friendly team Facebook page where again we pop comments and we help each other out, and I always encourage anybody in my team, whether you're a hobby demonstrator, i.e. you're just using the product for your own hobby, to just talk to each other and be friends and be friendly with each other. And we sometimes just have a right old good laugh with each other too. So any questions whatsoever about joining, please just drop me a message. If you don't want to join but you want some goodies in the sale, then the sale is on for a couple of days. The joining offer is on until the end of November, and that's 2021. And there is currently a paper pumpkin called the Hope Box, and that is available just through the web shop. It doesn't appear in any publication, any of the catalogues. So please do visit my shop online and have a look at what that's all about. You might just like that. So if you're a beginner crafter and you don't have a craft room full of stuff, you might be interested in the kits that we have, and they're only available online. And of course you can order them direct from me if you're local, or you can place your orders yourself using my online shop and have them delivered direct to your door. So please don't forget the kits. They're absolutely fantastic for beginners. If you've got maybe family members or friends who want to have a go and they've not done it before, then why not think about getting them a kit for a Christmas present? They make really excellent gifts. And again, if you're confused or you want to ask any questions about any of the products that I've mentioned today, you know how to contact me and I'm here to answer any questions, so please do. And that's it from me. Enough rambling on. Imparting information. But thank you once again for joining me, and thank you for if you're watching on catch up, thank you for watching on catch up. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. It's free to subscribe, and if you click notifications, that's the bell symbol, then you will always get a notification when I have uploaded a new video. If you don't click notifications, you won't get that interruption, but I do encourage you to subscribe in any case, because it will make it easier to find my YouTube channel once you're back there and searching for it. And it really helps me if you subscribe. So that's it for now. Thank you very much, and I will see you again soon. It may not be next week, but I will be back soon, and keep watching my feed. Most of all, please stay safe and keep crafting. Have fun, everyone. Bye for now. Lots of love. Bye.